Hey everyone, this is Ivo once again, and I wanna welcome everyone back to another movie review. And of course, today I'm gonna talk about is the seventh installment in the Fast and Furious franchise, and of course, that's going to be Furious 7, which I do have a Blu-ray. This came out 2015. It was released on 16 March 2015. And Furious 7, I'll say the best sequel by far. The best Fast and Furious sequel by far. And I'll say this will be my second favorite with Tokyo Drift. Because I love Tokyo Drift, but I also love this movie too. They're both great movies. One crew, one last ride, because I agree. And I really love this movie to death. And this movie is dedicated to Paul Walker, who passed away sadly in November 30, 2013. He lost his life after he was returning from the charity auction. I think was for poor with his friend. His friend was driving a fast car, probably Ferrari, I'm not sure, but a fast car. And because he was speeding way too much, he lost the control, and they both hit in the telegraphic pole, and telegraphic pole, and both of them were killed instantly. And Paul Walker was also killed with electricity because wires fall on the car, and he lost his life. And this was dedicated for Paul Walker. This is actually the last movie with Brian O'Connor that we see. The last movie. This film was also filmed. It was actually filmed in 2012, but because Paul Walker passed away, they did not know how to continue, so they actually left for hiatus with new ideas. So back in 2015 was released because it's supposed to be released in 2014, but the death of Paul Walker, really shocked everyone because it was really tragic. It was really tragical death, and of course, brothers of Paul Walker decided to help the studio to complete his last work for Brian O'Connor. So both of them, Cody and Caleb, they actually worked as Brian O'Connor with CGI, so I think they did a great job, and I really wish the best and to Paul Walker's family, and also I do miss him, and definitely one of my favorite actors. And it was really, Tyrese Gibson, he cried at the time on, he went and he went and he cried to the funeral. I saw emotional footage with videos how emotional he broke down. He lost one of his best friends, and it's actually 10 years since the second movie of Too Fast Too Furious came out, and they worked for 10 years. They worked together, and Paul Walker died, and that was really sad. But this movie is a really good movie. Probably the best sequel of so far. I actually prefer this movie over Fast and Furious 6. I prefer this movie a lot more. It's dedicated to Paul Walker, which is right on the end of credits for Paul. And this movie this time was directed by James Wan. Justin Lin, he directed previous three entries. He directed the Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, then he directed Fast and Furious Fast 5 and Fast and Furious 6. Four sequels he directed. This was the new sequel that wasn't directed by that actually wasn't directed by Justin Lin. Justin Lin directed F9. That movie sucked, but when I came to that movie, I'll talk about it. But I want to talk about Furious 7. I love this movie to death. The action sequences, the act and performance, everything the cast shows up, and also the story isn't complicated. I also know what the story is about. But this was released on 16 March 2015, and I also will talk about the cast and later the action sequences and the story. But I actually love this cover, which everyone's in it. We have all the gang in the film. And the story talks about is actually a revenge. The story you already know it's about revenge and the hunt for a hacker who designed a device called God's Eye. So it's more revenge, and at the same time it's more about getting those hacking device designed by a hacker named Ramsey. And Furious 7, which is awesome. It's amazing what they did with the film. And yes, this is my second favorite Fast and Furious film. Tokyo Drift will be number 3, but it's closely to Tokyo Drift because I love both of them, but I'll put this one above, especially because it was so great directed, it was so great acted wise. Vin Diesel kicks ass, he was a badass. Michelle Rodriguez, she returns, and this time I'm glad she wasn't a bad guy like she was in Furious 6. I'm glad she did a fantastic job. Michelle Rodriguez was awesome this movie, she did a great job. This is just a fantastic action film, and I really enjoy it. To me, the second favorite of mine. But the story talks about Deckard Shaw from the previous entry, Luke Evans, who played Owen Shaw. In this movie, we have Jason Statham, who's a badass as Deckard Shaw, and he's looking to settle the score with Dominic Toretto and his crew for crippling his brother, and he promised blood for blood. And the movie ends in which Tokyo Drift showed, in which Han dies, and he goes and Deckard goes and hacks Hobbs' computer, gets in a fight, kicks ass. He kicks Hobbs' ass while Hobbs and Elena starts to shoot at. They go and they just start to shoot in. You know, this is that scene where they actually try to shoot, when they both actually try to shoot Deckard. Deckard shows a bomb, and Hobbs jumps off the window. You have great explosions. Hobbs, Elena lands on Hobbs. He's in hospital. And then Deckard Shaw goes to Tokyo and he kills Han, which is edited footage from the Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. He kills Han, and then he calls Dominic Toretto, just like we saw in Fast and Furious 6 on the end of credits, which ended with a cliffhanger, and calls him and says, Dominic Toretto, you don't know me, but you were about to will. And he blows up, whole house he blows up, and we also see Brian and his son, Jack, and whole house explodes. Dominic, Mia, and Jack and Brian are okay. But because Mia is not safe, she goes to Dominican Republic to be safe, and of course Brian, he decides to help Dominic in order to get Deckard Shaw, but he tells Mia that he will see the next day because I have to go to Tokyo. So he goes to Tokyo, and that time Lucas Black returns as Sean Boswell. He reprises his role as Sean Boswell, and there's another CGI from Tokyo Drift in which then they showed up, and he gives him a few stuff that he found from Han, and he shows him, and also we find out more about Deckard Shaw. He's a former special Black Ops assassin. I think the government tried to retire him, but he retired them, and he's actually a very dangerous man. And in the open scene, he kicks everyone in the hospital ass, and I still know how they did that, but Jason Statham was a badass motherfucker in this movie. And there's also the scene in which Letty Ortiz, she tries to live with the life with Dominic, but she lost all the memories. And she lost all the memories. There was actually a street war race, just like in the first movie. Hector from the first movie, The Fast and Furious, returns in a cameo scene, and she punches him when she wins the race. She leaves with his car, and on the grave we see actually her grave at night, which I love that scene. And yeah, I just love that scene. I just love that scene, and yeah, it was really good scene. And then she leaves. And of course, when Dominic finds out that Deckard Shaw killed Han and he's targeting his crew, we have a funeral scene. The cemetery, I did actually wrote down the cemetery that they filmed. It was actually in Oakland Cemetery. They actually filmed funeral scene, and of course, the actress, the actress Gal Gadot and Sam Kung, they only appear in archive footage and of course in the photographs. There was a scene in which Gal Gadot filmed a scene after the events of Fast and Furious when I think she took Letty out of the hospital. But it was never that scenes are never shown in this movie or or Fast 5 because it actually was deleted. So only on picture Han and of course Giselle, they showed up, and that is it. At that time, Dominic sees the guy who went and killed Han, and he goes with a car, and we have a great chase, and he shows up he goes and shows up in the tunnel, in which he meets face to face. He meets Deckard Shaw, and Deckard Shaw says it's gonna be a real street fight, and he tries the gun, and he tries to shoot Dominic, but at that time a group of CIA Black Ops are hunting down Shaw. They save Dominic. They actually go save Dominic, and of course Kurt Russell in this movie. Yes, Kurt Russell as Mr. Nobody is in this movie, in which he's hunting down the Tekken device and Shaw, who's actually an enemy. So he goes. And that's actually the scene is that they try. Dominic decides to work with Mr. Nobody to bring down the Deckard Shaw, and in order to do so, they have to hack, because he works for another people who actually he's working, who hired him in order to get this hacking device. This is a small chip, a hacking device called God's Eye, which you can see everyone. And Deckard Shaw works for this guy who hired him. And I'll try to find the guy's name. If I find the guy, because sadly he's not. No, he's not. I don't have him. I don't have that guy. Demon Hunso Yakande. The Deckard Shaw works for Yakande. I think there's some sort of criminal organization, or I don't know what they actually are, and they actually had to go, with there's a scene which they actually had to hit the convoy to get Ramsey to get that hacking device in order to flush out Shaw, because with hacking device you can find in a few hours any person that you're looking this planet. And they decide to hit this convoy to get Ramsey, and that's of course the actress, to get Ramsey, and in order to find Shaw wherever he's hiding. and Natalie Emmanuel plays Ramsey. She's a hacker. She devised that God's eye, and this guy Yakande, he demon Honsu Yakande, he kidnapped Ramsey, and now they actually go to save Ramsey, and they actually they're actually they actually all the cars, they were actually put in the airplane, and that was done for real. And of course they actually go with the airplane, they jump with the cars. I think it was 1,000 feet. They jump with the cars on that road with parachutes, and they land on the street, and they start on the road, and they start attacking the convoy. And Brian O'Connor, like a badass he is, jumps in the bus, and he fights this man. And Tony Ya is in this movie. Yes, Tony Ya is in this movie, and he fights him off, and he saves Ramsey. Ramsey lands on Dominic Scar. She lands on Dominic's car, and she gets in the Dominic's car, while the Dominic, he goes down the hill. He goes. He saves her, and then he's like surrounded by all these guys in the cars. He's surrounded, and he goes off the cliff, destroys the car, but still he saves Ramsey, which is awesome scene. He goes off the cliff, which is a badass scene. Brian fights off Tunia, and the bus flips over and starts sliding down the hill off the cliff, and Tunia jumps off. He goes and closes and locks Brian in. Brian gets sliced down the cliff, and he climbs the bus, runs the bus, and he jumps, which is awesome, amazing scene. It was actually amazing scene. And that time, Letitia shows up, and of course, Brian goes with her, but actually, I forgot to mention, when Dominic starts working with Mr. Nobody, his whole crew shows up because he tells that he needs his whole crew, so he gets his whole crew, and of course, Roman, Tash, Brian, and of course, Michelle Rodriguez as Letty, his whole crew. This movie, Dwayne Johnson is only the open scene and then by the finale, but his whole crew are actually only Letty, Brian, Tash, and Roman, because Han's dead. He's not. He's only in the end, and Mia isn't in that. Mia isn't in this film at all. She only has like 2 scenes. And I read that I think the actress Jordana Brewster was absent at the time. It was really hard for her because this was filmed after Paul Walker's death, and it was really hard. She had to learn those lines. She stated it was very hard to play it. The garage scene when you see this movie was the latest scene from Fast 5. And she had to rehearse her lines. It was really rehearse her lines. It was really hard for her. So Mia wasn't in this movie at all. She wasn't actually needed. But Michelle Rodriguez did a fantastic job as Letty. Yes, I like her. I like her a lot in this movie. A lot better than in Fast and Furious or the first one, or even in the 6th movie. I like her in this movie a lot. Michelle Rodriguez was awesome. She did a fantastic job as Letty. She was hot, she was a badass, and she also she was the only one, because the whole movie, the whole franchise, Letty and Brian never talked, except the 6th one, which there was only one line. In this movie, Letty goes after him, and Brian goes with her. And I'll talk more about the jump scene later. And now the crew saves Ramsey in order to get God's eye. And then there's a scene when they actually find out where Deckard Shaw is, and they go they actually decide the next morning when sunrise they're gonna go after him. But during the night, Dominic goes to Mr. Nobody and he says, just you, me, and your team, no one else. My guys are professional drivers, they're not mercenaries. And now you see why I prefer this movie, because they did it right. Dominic's crew they're not mercenaries. I don't know why the fuck Justin Lin give them all the guns. They're not mercenaries. And that's one of my complaint was in the Furious 6, because they have guys that are shooting on everyone. That's stupid. They're professional drivers, not mercenaries. And this movie did it right. Yes, this movie did it right. And Vin Diesel, he also produced, Vin Diesel also produced this movie, and Chris Morgan wrote once again the screenplay, but they did it right. Everyone, he was right. His team are actually professional drivers, not mercenaries. And that's one of the problems was in Furious 6, because Fast and Furious 6, because they should not do that. And so Mr. Nobody and also Brian goes with Dominic. They go in this storage, and they actually and it turns out that there's actually an ambush, because Decker Chow works with this guy Yakande. He works with him and his man, and there's a firefight. And I actually watched, I have extended cut. I watched extended cut in which Mr. Nobody, Kurt Russell, is a badass, puts glasses in and kills at least 3 guys. I think in theatrical cut he doesn't do that, but in this movie, in this cut, he does that. And until he gets wounded, and you're wondering where the hell is his blood, but then we see that he has a bulletproof vest. All his team are killed. Decker Shaw escapes once again, and of course they also have now their device, Hawks, God's Eye, they actually have in possession. Dominic and Brian, they try to save, they go and try to save Mr. Nobody, but Mr. Nobody, he said that his medical team are actually going. And I really love that, they try to get in the hospital, because he's hit. I just love how they did that. And they go, I forgot to mention, they also go in Abu Dhabi, or in that Africa, or that scene in which they try to get this hacking device, and Tash and Ramsey, they try to hack in this guy who's this prince in Jordan or whatever he is. They go to this building, and Roman does the happy birthday routine, and Ronda Rousey is in this movie, and of course Letty Ghost fights Ronda Rousey in this movie. They both fall down. I think there's more punches, and I think was more doubled, but they really did a good job. I think that Michelle Rodriguez and Ronda Rousey did a great choreography in the fight scenes. And there's also when Brian and Dominic sit in the car, and they start the car, no brakes, they go in the car, jump, they actually crash and jump off the building, another building, they keep jumping from building to building. I think that was a little CGI, but also it kind of looked like practical. And they crashed the whole car out of it when they got that hacking device in the dashboard, in which Brian breaks the dashboard, and they got the hacking device, which is awesome. I forgot to mention that scene. Abu Dhabi, Abu Dhabi is actually that scene. And of course Abu Dhabi, and the final scene brings them to Los Angeles, which Dominic says we have a city, and this is our war. This is our war that's coming, and we have the streets of LA, which you know all of them, and I love I mean, Dominic goes like a fucking badass he is. Yes, Vin Diesel, once again, a badass he is. He goes and grabs his 1976 Dodge Charger RT, and he uses his shotgun, a barrel. He uses his 12 gauge double barrel shotgun, and he chainsaws those barrels, and he goes and he dressed like a badass, like a Punisher. He dressed like a badass, and I love it. Brian also, he goes to his car. He goes to his car. 2012 Nissan GT-R R35, he goes and he dresses like an FBI. He puts that vest which says FBI. He takes that thing off. He dressed like an FBI because he was an FBI agent in Fast and Furious. And they all just like in Commando, they actually go armed. I love the preparation. I call it preparation, which is awesome. Which I'll put that scene in my video. It was awesome. It was amazing. And also Deckard Shaw, he gets dressed with his car, his grenades, his guns. He reloads the guns like a badass he is. I mean, the guy Deckard Shaw, he was a badass. Deckard Shaw, he was actually a badass in this movie. He was a badass. He actually was a badass in this movie. And I also love this scene in the convoy with Brian, which was awesome. And Dominic was also awesome. This was just a badass film. From beginning to end, it was a badass film. And then I love the preparation scene. And then they actually go, in the city, and there's of course Yakan there with a helicopter, and he's hunting down for Ramsey with his God's eye, and Tash and Ramsey, they both they hack into the God's eye in her device. And they're right 3 miles away, and there's a drones which try to destroy the car, and Brian drives them. And there's a scene when Brian, he goes under those barrels, those pipes under the truck, when the God's Eye when the drone with the machine gun is firing and using the rockets, and there's a police car destroyed, and they also changed, And Ramsey, she goes to Roman and Tash. She climbs in the car, and Brian jumps on the car, and of course Yakan says fire. They fire a rocket, and whole Nissan GT-R is destroyed to pieces. Great practical effect, great explosions. And there's a scene when Vin Diesel goes with his Dodge Charger RT, and he hits. He lifts the car up, and he goes and hits right in Aston Martin from Deckard Shaw. And he's actually on the roof with his car, and he uses 2 barrels, shoots, and Deckard Shaw grabs his pistol, 6 goes, fires back. And of course, Dominic goes backwards with his car, and Deckard Shaw climbs out. He grabs things, and of course, I love the lines from Dominic. And he says, he steps out the car, and he says, "You thought this is gonna be a street fight? You're damn right it is." And I just love that. And they go and fight each other. I know that already there was a stuntman for Vin Diesel, I'm not sure, but they both fight each other. With just a big brawl between Jason Statham and of course Vin Diesel. I thought that was work very well in the film. I really like that. The action sequence was still well done. In meantime, Hobbs finds out there's a war, so he goes and he steals that. He breaks the thing that he had around his arm. He goes and breaks that thing on his arm. He gets dressed up. He grabs the ambulance truck. He goes to the ambulance truck, crashes, and of course, Michelle Rodriguez-Letty goes and she drives, while the drone is hunting her and Ramsey down, try to kill them, and Hobbs goes with the car, with the ambulance car, crashes from the bridge, falls to the drone, destroys the drone, and goes with his Smith and Wesson revolver and destroys, the drone. Then he grabs a machine gun, a mini machine gun that was used in Predator, Terminator 2, that was used, and he starts firing. He goes and starts firing like a badass he is. He goes and starts firing on the helicopter. And we actually do have, this is actually a little better. I have another cover for Fast and Furious 7, which you can see he goes and fires. And I love this Dodge Charger. And that's the car in Abu Dhabi when they jump off, when they actually jump off the buildings, which is awesome. Michelle Rodriguez in this movie is awesome. I really enjoyed this film a lot. It was really awesome scene. I really do enjoy that. On in the city, and there's a scene when Yakande fires. He goes and fires, and tries to kill Dominic and Deckard, and misses them, and Dominic goes and punches the floor, and of course Deckard, he falls down in the cliff. In the fall, he falls down, and of course then he goes and he grabs the car, and Jakanda with the helicopter tries to kill everyone, and he grabs the grenades with the car, drives to the car, jumps in the car right in the cliff, and he puts the grenades, the back with grenades on the helicopter. And of course that time Dwayne Johnson as Hobbs, he grabs the gun, his Smith & Wesson model goes 629, goes shoots right in the grenades and blows whole helicopter that's to pieces. And of course Dominic then crashes in the fall, and Hobbs shows up, to save him, and the crew goes try to save Dominic, and he's dying, and Brian tries to save him, and Letty keeps crying around him, and she goes that we see the scene that they were actually married, and Dominic wakes up, and she says, I remember everything. He says, it's about time. And by the end, they now stay together. When we see that Brian belongs with Mia and his son, and there's also a scene in the parking garage which is very emotional, which I love that scene, in which she tells him that she's pregnant, there's gonna be a girl, the another kid is on the way, which is awesome in my opinion. But yeah, to me, Furious 7 was a really awesome film, amazing film, definitely the best in the sequels so far. But I actually prefer this cover. I have another cover, was custom cover made, but I do love that city. And we see Dominic, Brian, Mia, and Letty. Michelle Rodriguez did a great job. I mean, I have to give her a credit. In this movie, she was the best one. I actually thought that she was much better than Mia sitting behind the wheel, or when she was fighting off Ronda Rousey. I thought that was awesome. And yeah, so the action sequences, now I'm actually going to read that when I actually, first off, there were 340 cars were used in the film. Over 230 cars were destroyed. Yes, 230 cars were destroyed. The studio originally wanted to shot the sequences in Georgia to provide tax breaks for film productions with CGI, And stunt coordinator that they hired, Spiros Razatos, he disagreed with that, and they wanted that when actually the crew goes, with the parachutes and lands on the road. They actually wanted to film that in Georgia, but with CGI they will put woods and the backgrounds with CGI in it. And stunt coordinator disagree with that in order that they will prevent more tax, production to save more money than to lose it. That's why they wanted to do, but like I said, stunt coordinator disagree. He said the audience are not gonna like it. They're not gonna feel about it. They're not gonna believe that. So on the end, he won, and they filmed in Colorado, which of course I wrote down where they actually filmed that, which was awesome. That scene was fantastic. To me, that scene is the best one. It was in Woodland Park, Colorado. They filmed, and on the real road, real mountains, real trees. And there's a scene when actually with the car, I think was another car that was Dominic driving, goes off the cliff with Ramsey. She has a helmet on it, and they crashed in the real woods. They really crashed. They wanted, real, more practical done, because those stunt scenes were practical done, but they were very dangerous. Now, they were the cars that were actually in the airplane, and of course that was done for real. It wasn't fucking CGI. They actually had to build the real parachutes, and they were real cars in it. They actually jump off the real air down, and they actually built, because in reality, parachutes can't hold those cars, but the stunt team, they actually did test scenes, so they actually did it perfectly, and they designed those kind of parachutes that holds, and of course I wrote down airplane, the Lockheed airplane. It was actually the Lockheed C-130 Hercules, was used to carry vehicles that will drop from 12,000 feet. Yes, it was 12,000 feet high above to Sonoran Desert, making cars at a speed of 130 to 140 miles per hour. Over 10 cameras were used for the sequence, and that was actually they actually did a few tests with 12,000 feet. The cars that were dropped off with the later parachutes of 1,000 feet below the ground, and the parachute goes up, and of course there's a scene when you see Roman, keeps spinning around. He's like Joker, like Ramsey told him, Joker. He says, I'm not Joker, the head of the team. And they also all go on this road, and that's the great scene. And Deckard Shaw also shows up, tries to mess with the team and with Dominic, with that hat in the car, which was a tack vehicle, which was another awesome scene. It was just a badass scene, in my opinion. But that was done for real. The sequence was done for real, especially the end in which they're actually speeding around the city in Los Angeles. That just was awesome, the city, or Abu Dhabi, or that flying car, which is awesome, or the Dodge Charger, or Hobbs shooting with a machine gun. That was awesome. Brian Tyler returns as the music score. Now, the budget for this movie cost $190 million worldwide. This movie made $1 billion. Yes, $1 billion. $550 million later, by $1 billion. It was the only Fast and Furious movie that grossed worldwide $1 billion. So that's awesome scene. And like I said, Tony, Ronda Rousey, Kurt Russell are in this film. They all did great job, especially Kurt Russell. This will be my fourth favorite Kurt Russell film. The first three will be Tango and Cash, Big Trouble in Little China, Escape from LA, this movie Furious 7, and Escape from New York that Kurt Russell did. Kurt Russell was perfectly choice as Mr. Nobody in this movie. Jason Statham did a fantastic job, better than Luke Evans as Owen Shaw. He was better as Deckard Shaw. He was a badass in this movie. And another scene that I forgot to mention, when Brian was jumping off the cliff, that was a stuntman. That wasn't CGI, it was done for real. The stuntman really hung himself. He climbed up the bus, and the bus really did slide down off the cliff, and he was running up. That was a stuntman, a really dangerous stunt, which he succeeded, and he jumped off. And I like the scene. And my favorite scene will be the scene in of course, in Woodland Park would be my favorite scene. Now, I forgot to mention the soundtrack is See You Again by Wiz Khalifa and Charlie Puth is dedicated to Paul Walker at the end of the credits. And it received 1 billion views on YouTube on 2015. And of course, since then, it's continue watching it because it's a memory dedicated to Paul Walker, his character from Brian O'Connor, from undercover cop, from a fugitive, from fat till criminal to fugitive, which is awesome. But yeah, this movie is dedicated to Paul Walker, and this review is also dedicated to Paul Walker because this will be the final time we'll see Brian O'Connor. Because in the next installment he did not appear, so thank God he wasn't. But yeah, I love Dominic's lines. You thought this is gonna be a street fight? You're damn right it is. But now the cast, Dominic Toretto, played by Vin Diesel, he did a fantastic job. He did a great job. Cody, Caleb, and of course Paul Walker, who did a few scenes. He did a great job as Brian O'Connor. Jason Statham did a fantastic job. He's actually, I think that will be that scene. He did a fantastic job. Michelle Rodriguez was awesome as Letty. I love that Hobbs was on the end. Dwayne Johnson was awesome. We also find out that he has a daughter. When her daughter says to Dominic that he kicked his ass, so that was awesome. Natalie Emanuele as Ramsey, she did a great job. Also the guy who played Shepard, who was killed, did also a good job. And the bad guy, another bad guy, Honsu Yakande, Demon Honsu as Yakande did a good job as a villain. But Jason Statham steals the show. He was awesome in this film. Deckard Shaw, he then gets arrested by cops, and he gets in the real bars in a huge prison. It's impossible to escape. And he says if you try to dig a wall to 12 meters of concrete, but if you do, my fists will wait at you. Which is awesome. One crew, one last ride, which I really enjoy. I think this movie, Furious 7, could have ended the franchise, but they keep continuing, which is stupid. But this movie could have ended the franchise. And like I said, Michelle Rodriguez was awesome, amazing. Vin Diesel, badass, he kicked ass. On the end, Dwayne Johnson did a good job. Roman Pierce was awesome as Tyrese Gibson, and of course Tash Parker, played by Chris Bridges, he did a good job. But Furious 7 is awesome film. I really enjoy Furious 7. I love this movie to death, and like I said, my second favorite movie between the Fast and Furious, Tokyo Drift, and this one, but I'll say this will be my second favorite because Fast 5 is my number one, and also will be. Also, James Wan did a good job directing this film. Chris Morgan wrote the screenplay once again. Vin Diesel produced this film. And it was actually 2 hours 20 minutes, which I have an extended edition. Yeah, this is extended edition. It's not the theatrical cut, but it doesn't matter. But yeah, that's my review. I want to show you the back, Dominic, Brian, and Letty, Hobbs, Brian, of course, and of course Ramsey, um, the actress, Natalie Manuel, that's Natalie Manuel, and Vin Diesel as Dominic. Furious 7 kicks ass. It's a really good movie. It's a badass movie. It's a kicks ass. If you haven't seen Furious 7, I recommend it. This is my second favorite film, and this movie kicks ass. Yes, kicks ass. Furious 7 kicks ass. I love this movie to death. Love the funeral scenes. They did a great job in the funeral scenes, which was in Oakland Cemetery and Woodland Park, Colorado. The fight scenes, with the car, and Tony was in it fighting Brian, or the bus goes off the cliff and Stuntman runs in it. That was done for real. It was mostly practical done, so that was awesome. So that's my review on Furious 7. That's it for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching it. And soon I will review the Fate of the Furious, which is the 8th installment. Anyway, I'm out. Take care. Peace.